Hello, friends. We are back, and we are here to talk about the latest episode of The Real Housewives of Potomac. Um, I, I can't really say. I mean, I do. I said in my last video or one of my last videos that I feel like we got over a hump and we're getting more Housewives stuff. But for me, this just kind of feels like the beginning of another season. Like it feels like we started with a one season with some type of agenda and then they started over and now we're at the beginning of another season. And I'm saying that to say like I'm getting the beginnings of a lot of stuff, but I'm not getting the completion of anything. And I'm pretty darn for sure that this season's about to be over. They're about to film the reunion next week. But let's chat. So we're here. We're coming off of the aftermath of this very interesting talk that Mia had with Gordon. I did not do a review of that episode, but I thought that was a decent episode. And I'll say that scene with Mia and Gordon was the most substantive thing that I've seen all season. So we're kind of on the aftermath of that. Mia and Gordon are talking and they seem like they're in a better space. They haven't really referenced that conversation necessarily, but Mia is talking about something from the last episode where, they went to Wendy's event or Eddie's event and she kind of got into it with Karen and, they had the whole conversation where Karen was kind of talking about Mia being a trick and her, sleeping with a basketball player. And she tells Gordon the trick part, but she doesn't tell him the basketball player part. And she kind of highlights that in her confessional. She's like, I may have left that out. And there was a weird part last episode where she said in her confessional, like, oh, well, he's not a basketball player. I guess alluding to the fact that she was dating somebody else, but that he's just not a basketball player. I don't know. She's talked about dating other people. So it's interesting to hear her say it on the show because she said it on Watch What Happens Live and it's been on the internet, but she's saying it on the show. So I don't know, I'm confused. And even with Gordon having like proposed that they do this whole like arrangement thing, I'm just like, where is this marriage? Like it's interesting, but I'm just confused on like the timeline of the things. Like, are y'all in an arrangement right now and dating other people or what? Like, what's the tea? But okay. So Ashley comes over. I don't know that I would have guessed that Ashley and Mia would be filming a scene together. I don't know that we see that very much. I don't know what to think of that dynamic besides the fact that it's messy Ashley and messy Mia. So, okay, whatever. After that said that, though, I'm actually realizing what this is about. So let's talk about it a little bit more. So, Ashley comes over and Mia is basically telling her about the conversation she had with Gordon because they threw a little shade and said that they didn't think she was getting a divorce. And so Mia was kind of saying like, but I guess she was almost trying to say, like, girl, I feel you, because the conversation that me and Gordon had was that we wouldn't get a divorce either. We just have an arrangement and we can still benefit from each other and have that arrangement. So, what's your tea? And Ashley is basically saying, like, there is a fear. She did give some good background story, which is nice to hear because we don't get to hear much about Ashley or learn much about Ashley because she's too busy being annoying. So, it was nice to hear a little bit more background story. I don't know if we've heard this before, but still, it was nice to hear. And she was just talking about, having been poor before. Her mom was a single parent, so as a child she saw those struggles. So now she's kind of latched on to Michael for financial reasons, something that took us 18 years for her to admit, but okay. And so she's fearful to let that go. And it's like, okay, that makes sense. And so I circled that back around to realize that, oh, well, not a lot of the ladies are working this season, right? And at the very least, I can say that Mia has seemingly been the one to be like bringing up topics and asking questions. And like I said, her and Gordon's scene to me was one of the most substantial that we've had all season. So they needed Mia to film with Ashley, as random as it is, so that somebody could do some work. So, I'm going to appreciate Mia for that. And I also appreciate Ashley for being a little bit more forthcoming than we would expect for her to be. They then start talking about Robin having invited them to the DR. They showed a flashback, but I don't think that was a part of the episode last episode, I don't think. And we know how I feel about them showing flashbacks of stuff that wasn't in the episode, especially if they're going to go on a group trip. I'm reading without even knowing the facts, but whatever. For example, or just in case they didn't include it in last week's episode, here's the read. If we're going on the trip and it's important, I don't know why that was cut out. If it was put in there, then I'm just going to shut up. It was definitely interesting to see Robin's confessional, and I wonder what the question was from the producer that made her answer in this way, but she's essentially saying, she doesn't want to talk about the husbands and the relationships and the drama. She just wants to go and have a good time. And as soon as she said it, I was like, girl, of course. Of course you do. Of course you just want to go have a good time. How ironic. And it was just funny to get Karen's confessional right after that saying like, well, duh, girl, of course you don't want to talk about the husbands because yours is buying hotel rooms for other women. So of course you don't want to talk about that. And I'm like, exactly. Like, whew, I'm not crazy. So we get this link up between Wendy and Aneka. I talked about this a while ago. The fact that, well, first of all, we didn't even know if it was coming. And then we found out that it was coming, but it's at the tail end of the season. And I tend to think that if they leave stuff to the tail end of the season, then it's not going to have much. It's not going to pick up much wind under it. It's not going to mean much of anything. So not only is it at the tail end of the season, but it's at the very beginning of this episode. They literally just kind of threw it in there. So it to me, watching it in the way that it's placed in the season and in the episode, it just seems like it's not going to mean much. But we'll talk about it. I do like, though, that at the very least, it was substantive. Like, I did mention this before. Like, if they're going to have the talk, I want to be able to hear substance and hear them talk about something. So it's nice that they gave it a good amount of time, even though I wouldn't say we got a lot of resolve. But, I appreciate that Wendy came in and, said that she just wanted to, I don't remember who kind of opened it up. Maybe it was Aneka. It was Aneka saying, basically she wanted to lay everything out. Fine, I'm fine with that. But, she starts and she is something that I picked up in the social cues of that conversation. She was very much so dragging out the whole, like, your mom submitted my name to a shrine thing. Like, she said it at least 17 times. And her story more so started out with, like, the phone call thing. Like, okay, and I actually took the notes because to this day it's very hard for me to understand the story. But, Wendy's sister called Aneka's cousin, and 2 weeks before Aneka came to the group or started filming, I guess, even before she met with Ashley, about the shrine thing. And it was 2 weeks before that, and that's when, she received the call, like, oh, we got a problem with Aneka because she's trying to get into the group by way of Wendy. And Wendy kind of cussed that off, and I'm like, like, how do I feel about that, right? Like, because I'm kind of like, do I want Aneka to get this out? Is this important? Because sometimes it does feel like Wendy can kind of cut things a little too soon. I kind of want to hear it. She could be right that this isn't important, but I kind of want to hear it. But then Wendy explains, like, okay, you keep going back to this narrative. She's like, I talked to my sister, I talked to my mom. They both denied the allegations that you're bringing. You're still bringing them up to this date, which I had already noticed. She's still talking about it. And she's like, they denied it. So, girl, tell me, what did Wendy, do to you? And maybe I'm not smart enough, but I just had not necessarily thought about that. Like, I hadn't broken it down like that. Like, yeah, girl, let's stop talking about the semantics of the phone call and the shrine and the this. What did Wendy do to you for you to come onto this show and basically be targeting her and being weird? Because that's exactly what happened. And Aneka's not able to answer that question. She still goes back into her story of, well, girl, your mom submitted me to a shrine, like that affects my family. And if she hadn't already lost me episodes ago, wigs ago, she lost me again. Like, girl, you're not talking about anything. Like, Wendy didn't do anything to you. Like, you keep bringing up this shrine thing. So that's definitely not a step forward at the end of the day, because that's Wendy's issue, is that you brought up her mom and you brought up this shrine thing, and it's inappropriate to bring that up. And it's weird that you brought that up, especially in your Nigerian culture, and then bringing it to the show. It's weird. Like, all around, it's weird. The way that you've come off on this show is weird. And you are basically trying to say that you have an issue with Wendy, but you keep kind of circumventing that weirdness into the issue. It's not a legitimate issue, and you just continue to be weird. So, I mean, I understand, like, and I was happy that she was able to apologize-ish she apologized specifically for two things: calling Wendy's mom a witch and for calling Wendy the B word. But she still was sticking to the story of, but your mom submitted my name to a shrine. And Wendy did ask her, like, are you able to say that that's not true? And she never did that. It seems like she's still on that narrative. And so while I was building up some frustration with Wendy because I'm like, ooh, I wish that we could move forward in this conversation, I understand exactly where she's coming from. Because if somebody's having a conversation with you and they're saying, like, oh, they want to move forward and they want to apologize, but they keep repeating the thing that is the issue, you can't say, I want to move forward and I want to apologize, but I'm going to keep saying that your mom submitted my name to a shrine. So, I do feel like, though, at that point, Wendy did play the game because obviously, if you're on this show, this ensemble cast, they're going to use things against you, especially if your name is Wendy and Candace clock that T. And so I like that Wendy was at least able to say, this is where I'm at. You don't want to move forward, and that's fine, but we can still move forward and coexist, right? Like, we can still be in the same space. We can work together, but we're not going to be homegirls because you're on some weird stuff. Fine, boom, done. And Wendy gets up and she leaves. Again, tiny bits of frustration, but I'm understanding it. Even now, talking through it now, I'm just like, I feel her. Like, girl, whatever. Because it just. We move on to Candace and Chris, and this is another good conversation to me, but this is why it again feels like, oh, are we starting a new season? Because if this is going to be Candace's storyline or a part of her storyline, I don't know why we didn't hear about this pre-mid-season trailer. And when we started out the season with Candace, if you remember, we started out with them trying to do this weird narrative of, she was going on tour, but she didn't want to do the Atlanta show with Drew. So they were trying to make it seem like something weird happened with that. That dropped and we never heard anything about it. And then she kind of like disappeared and we were doing this narrative of like, oh, she doesn't fit into the group, and they were doing that icing out thing. That clearly dropped and we're not really seeing that anymore. So now Candace is back, and what they did the last episode that either I saw or reviewed, I don't know, one of the last two episodes, they showed this synopsis of her or like going on tour and doing this and being busy, and they keep giving this emphasis of she's busy, she's busy, she's busy. But why will we not show that if that's her personal story? And then I wanted to give grace to say like, okay, well now they're picking up this kind of new storyline, but something that we've heard about before, and they're focusing on the fact that Candace and Chris don't have enough time together because Candace is busy. So I'm like, maybe they're trying to more so just tied into that storyline, but that doesn't work. Like, if you're going to give the personal story, you need to give the personal story, not for drama's sake, not for shock value. Don't say like, oh, here's a new storyline, Candace and Chris don't spend time together, and we're supporting it by that small synopsis of Candace was busy last episode. That just doesn't work for me. So that's what I'm saying. Like, is this a new season? Like, are we on episode 1B? Like, I don't understand what was the plan. And to my understanding, there's not a producer per lady, but they do have, it does separate, right? Like maybe a producer handles two or three of the ladies. I'm saying that to say like there has to have been some better planning, right? Like, what are we doing with this cast member this season? Especially if they have, what do they have, 7 housewives this season? That's a lot of ladies. What are we doing with each individual lady this season? And how is it going to play out? And maybe we have to break it up into a beginning, middle, and end because we got to see how the season goes, and we got to watch how terribly we do on Twitter. Clock that T. So we may have to do some editing. We may have to do some changing. We may have to do some shifting. So let's start somewhere at the very least. And let's also predict what the ending may be. And maybe the middle fluctuates, right? But it just feels like they had absolutely no planning as it pertains to anybody this season. Like, I don't know what I'm meant to learn about anybody this season. I feel like I was meant to see Candace and Wendy get iced out by way of Nneka, Giselle, and Robin, and that fell through. So now it just feels like we're floundering. I don't get it. But I do like, even though it feels hasty and it feels rushed, we got the scene last episode of Candace. I think she had gotten a biopsy or something like that of the lymph node in her breast, and she was, concerned about having breast cancer because there's a future of it. I mean, there's a history of it, in her family. And basically they say there's nothing wrong with it, and they didn't want to take it out because they're like, it's fine. And I can understand her feeling, overwhelmed and stressed out by like, but I want it out, right? And then they kind of rush and tie it into this story of, because Chris called them ice cubes, so I'm a little confused because we did hear about her IVF journey, but we didn't hear, I don't think that we heard a progression of she had eggs frozen. Like, she actually did the egg retrieval when she froze them. Maybe I missed it, but if I didn't, that should have been included in the personal story as well. So I'm assuming when Chris says ice cubes, they have, you know, embryos that they can implant and have children. But Candace is now saying, you know, she doesn't want to get pregnant, and then those hormones do anything to affect that lymph node in her breast, right? So it was really kind of her stories being smashed together. And I'm going to stop babbling about it because I feel like I'm not making any sense. I know what I mean, but it's just kind of crazy to me that all these different pieces of Candace's story are just all over the place. They've done a horrific job. But granted, with something that could be a very good and full story, full bodied story, and this isn't just my bias because I like Candace, she just has the most going on. Like, she's busy. She's on tour. I guess she got some embryos ready to get pregnant, which is something she really wants to do. She has this husband at home who she barely sees, and he wants to have the baby as well. Like, that's a story. So I don't know. I'm just confused. And moving on to not having a story, like, no disrespect to Gizelle's daughters, and I know that the narrative for the past couple years has been like, oh, we love to see Giselle film with her daughters. Those are the best moments. That's what we like to see. I think that they read that note and they just took it way too far, because every single time Giselle gets on the camera and does a green screen and talks to us about whatever her personal story is supposed to be, it's the same clips. I don't even think that they were doing separate interviews. She's just repeatedly saying, Grace is leaving, the twins are next. Grace is leaving, the twins are next. Grace is leaving, the twins are next. We get it. Like, I don't understand. The narrative is not being moved further. Like, I get that this was relevant now because it was Grace's graduation. Beautiful. I'm glad we got to see that. Congratulations to Grace. Truly, honestly. But in terms of what episode are we on? You know what I'm saying? Like, there has to be something more. There has to be something more. Her jeggings line or whatever the hell she got coming out with Ashley, be for real. What's the boy's name from Summer House or Winter House or whatever the hell? Be for real. Come on. Like, what's going on? And then we get a very, like, I understand the formula of Housewives, so they're about to go on a trip, so you'll typically get, like, a shopping scene. Y'all, we get this shopping scene with Mia, Robin, and Aneka. Mia, again, to her credit, because she's the only one working. Robin, because I'm sure she's available. And Aneka, because she's new and she needs to get out there and film. But what the hell are we going to get from this? What did we get? Nothing. They talked about nothing. They talked very briefly about where Mia ended up with Karen. And Mia's like, well, we're good. So there's really nothing to talk about there. Aneka talks a bit about her lunch with Wendy. But, I mean, at the end of the day, like, there's not going to be any dynamic there. She's talking about it to Robin and Mia, two people that don't like Wendy. So there's not going to be any productive conversation there. So nothing moves forward there. We just hear Aneka very stupidly say, she feels like she was gaslit by Wendy. You started this whole thing with Wendy. Like, I'm so confused, but okay. And nonetheless, we go nowhere. Like, I don't even know. I don't even believe I was watching the screen because there was nothing. It was so pointless and it was very brief and unnecessary. Then they're traveling for the trip and Kiana is back. No shade to Kiana, but it kind of just feels like she's back for what reason, right? Like, we're not utilizing her. We're not hearing anything about her. She gets her first green screen in which she looked amazing, but we're now learning that, you know, Gizelle has her own independent connection to her and Robin has her own independent connection to her by way of Gizelle. Like, I'm just confused about roping her back in now, and it's because we're just trying to figure out what to do with these stories because we have nothing to do this season and we're kind of starting over. So let's just kind of throw things out there. So let's throw Kiana in the mix. And I also feel like they're just kind of throwing it in there because that fight that happened is most likely coming up. I don't know. I don't even know if they're going to show it because it happened while cameras were down. But, you know, the fight that Deborah and Kiana were involved in, it doesn't seem like it's coming. But I don't know. But I would assume that that's probably coming down the line. So they're like, let's start sprinkling Kiana in there. And it just feels half-assed. We do learn, though, which was extremely interesting and very ironic, And maybe I'm sure I would hope that the producers have done their homework and they probably knew a bit of this because it's been talked about on camera. But you know, Ray does an annual trip to the DR and he stays at this same resort. That's tea. That's interesting. And Karen tells a story about how 27 years ago, you know, she called and a lady answered the phone and Ray said that it was a housekeeper. I don't believe that. Nobody else believed that. And I'm willing to bet that Karen doesn't believe that, but she's going along with it. But that's tea. That's Good Housewives tea, and I enjoyed that story. So like, I mean, that was the first thing that kind of perked me up this episode, to be honest. I thought it was really great editing when they did like the reenactment of the phone call. Like that was really good. Like that felt like Good Housewives tea. I know I've been like talking through this whole review with my eyebrows slanted down like this and frowning, but like I'm just kind of like confused with what's happening this season, but that was a good moment. Robin then, which you can kind of see the tractor rolling in Robin's head because when she's doing the room thing, like the room assignments, it's so drawn out and she's speaking so slowly and you could see her trying to build up to this climax of Shay. Like she was trying to make it a thing and she very individually pointed out the people that would get individual rooms and you know she gave them to the most obvious people. Like to give a speech and for the outcome of said speech to be so anticlimactic is kind of the definition of Robin. Anticlimactic. So it's just like she gives these single rooms to the Ashleys and to the Anekas and to the Giselles, and she does this big speech about how she and Giselle have shared rooms so often, and we even get this unnecessary montage of it. It was funny, but it was unnecessary because I feel like when you get these flashbacks, they're supposed to be proving a point. We know that they share rooms because they share a brain. So why wouldn't they share rooms? Like it just kind of is what it is. I don't know why that's important. But she does all this work to basically shade Wendy and Karen and Candace to have to end up sharing rooms, and Mia and what's her name, Kiana, seem like they have to just be casualties. And then it also makes me further think like it's just so weird how Mia is keep puppy dogging, following behind Robin and Giselle, who never ever championed for her. But I digress. So Karen proceeds to try to buy her own room. She doesn't make a big deal about it. She does announce that she's not going to be sharing a room. But, she's trying to buy her own room. And Robin is like, I don't know if Robin was drunk, tired. She was looking very disheveled. But she also was just inserting herself into every single conversation that Karen was having about this room. Like, none of these conversations were being had with Robin. It was not made an issue with Robin. It was not a discussion with Robin. It was not nothing was texted to Robin. Robin was not called, carrier pigeoned, nothing. And Robin is just inserting herself like, well, Karen doesn't want to share a room and Ashley offered, Karen to have her room and Karen turned her down. Like, why is that your business? Like, it had already been handled. The lady had already told Karen 5,000 pesos will give you your own room. Boom. And Robin makes this big issue about it, and it's just not an issue. And I'm really glad that nobody else chimed into that. And I also want y'all to pay attention to how much we don't hear from Giselle while we're on this trip. Just pay attention to that. Ultimately, we come back from a commercial and Karen finds out that she can't get her own room. She says the management was afraid or whatever because they were doing all that yelling and screaming. And so now she can't get her own room and she's having a separate private conversation with Ashley. And Ashley, again, offers up her room and she says she'll go stay with Mia. Boom, done, it's handled. Robin inserts herself again. And Robin's like, you need to apologize to Ashley. Now look, I'm going to give Robin points for working. I don't think that Robin knew that she was working. I think Robin was just being annoying because Robin is annoying. But I will give her points for at least providing us something to watch, some type of dialogue. I think it was hilarious how she was trying to tell Karen, you need to apologize to Ashley. Ashley's not taking that stance at all. Doesn't seem like Ashley's bothered. Didn't hear from Ashley. Ashley, nothing from Ashley. And Karen's like, girl, you need to leave me the hell alone. Like, stop talking to me. And that's the end of it. Speaking of unnecessary, which we've talked about a bunch, Giselle comes up with this thing because there was shade thrown against Aneka, and they go back to this flashback that we've already seen where Karen was telling Aneka, you live in North Potomac, whatever. I just don't see that as being huge shade, especially because it just wasn't much to the clip. Like, the clip happened, they had the conversation, it seems like it could be small housewife shade, cute, fine, whatever. But the way Aneka ran and told Giselle, I even when they brought it up and I did that review, I remember thinking, and I may have even said like, "Where's that gonna go?" I don't think it's gonna go anywhere, so I don't have anything to say about it. But now it's circling back around to something that we just don't need. And Giselle was using that to say like, oh, well, she shaded her, and so, but at least she has a home in Potomac and she owns it. So, and thus, Aneka is the new queen of Potomac. And I'm just, or Grand Dame, excuse me. And I'm like, and we've had that clip for years now. We've been seeing that clip for years, even before the season dropped. So now we're seeing it in context and knowing what type of floundering Giselle has been doing all season and knowing what type of floundering Aneka has been doing all season. It don't hit. It don't hit at all. It's very inaccurate. Like, Aneka couldn't possibly do a damn thing for Potomac. I'm so sorry. I completely understand Candace walking away. I feel like they did this like menacing music at the end and like a to be continued type of feel to make it seem like it was going to be more of a drama, when I'm pretty sure Candace probably just walked away, because it was confusing to me as well, because I felt like maybe they were out there playing a game, but they literally, if you think about it, literally communed on the lawn before going to their event just to do that, just to say we're crowning Aneka the Grand Dame Potomac. No context, no game, nothing led up to it, no conversation. It made absolutely no. It was stupid. It was stupid, and it was Giselle of all people to do it. Like, somebody who hasn't contributed anything this season at all, but she can do this. So I would have walked away as well. So I don't know. I feel like they are trying, but the plot is lost. It's gone. This season was a catastrophe, if anybody was to ask me. And I don't know where we're going, and I don't know what we're doing. Um, I'm still gonna watch and I'm still gonna support. As you can see, these videos come very few and not often. Um, and I don't like that, because I would prefer to be more consistent with my videos, but I don't be having nothing to say, and I definitely don't also want to come on here and just be negative. But I am back in my bag of at least being able to critique it from a TV standpoint and give notes, and I definitely have notes after having watched a couple episodes and compiled thoughts. I definitely have notes, and I can see the issues, and they're clearly outlined. So I'm fine with having that conversation. And I do feel like I said, it feels like they're trying to restart the season, obviously in a very inappropriate way. But I see where they're going, so I'm getting some breadcrumbs that I can work with. And at the very least, I can talk about that. So I'm trying, y'all. I'm trying the best that I can. And I will see y'all in the next one.